When people think of Virginia wine, they tend to think of Northern Virginia or even Charlottesville. But you'd be missing out on a hidden gem if you didn't explore Virginia's beautiful Eastern Shore. Welcome to Chatham Vineyards. I'm Crystal Cameron, owner and sommelier of Crystal Palate. Today, I'll introduce you to a second-generation winemaker who's turning this 400-year-old farm, this promised land, into world-class wine. Nestled between the Chesapeake Bay and the Atlantic Ocean lies a special place.
Chatham's on good high ground. This land here was patented in 1640 under English law, so it's very historic.
I had no idea the Eastern Shore of Virginia existed, how gorgeous it was, and how protected it is.
We also have a lot of ancient shell in our soil. 34 million years ago, apparently a meteor hit and created the Chesapeake Bay and Virginia's Eastern Shore, so it fragmented the soils.
John Wehner's family purchased this property in 1979 and spent decades restoring the farm and this federal period home.
So there was a lot of chainsawing and carpentry work and bush hogging. And my wife and I started Chatham Vineyards in 1999, and we decided to plant French vinifera and really focus on wine quality and try to produce some of the wonderful varietals that grow in Bordeaux and the Burgundy region.
John's love affair for the fruit of the vine was sparked as a small boy while growing up on his family's vineyard in Northern Virginia.
Well, I just love with the vineyard how in touch you are to the outdoors, to what you're producing something, you're making something with your hands. And what I love about this business is we do it from start to finish.
From Northern Virginia to the Eastern Shore, the Wehner family tradition lives on.
What's great is when I see my kids out here in the vineyard and they're getting that same childhood that I had in 1970 and 1980, and they really have a feel for the land and wine growing. It's a beautiful thing.
While this area is known more for its aquaculture, there's something unique about its terroir.
Vineyards that produce beautiful grapes that are ripe, that are healthy, you'll find that the wines made reflect the vineyard. The best wines made in the world reflect the vineyard and the place.
A moderate maritime climate, ancient shells, and sandy loam soils give Chatham wines a distinct mineral-driven quality. Some would say reminiscent of the Loire Valley or even Burgundy. And they're getting quite a reputation for their steel Chardonnay and oyster offerings.
One of the most unique wine and food pairings in the world is wine and oysters, and there are very limited places in the world where you can actually taste oysters grown in the same watershed that the vines are tended in.
Back in the vineyard, foreman Jose Mancia and his crew are keeping an eye on the sky and harvesting a few days early to get ahead of the coming storm.
Rain is difficult. It's something that we deal with. The trick to making harvest decisions, good harvest decisions, is getting in what we call the ripeness window, where we know that there are adequate sugars to produce a nice 12.5% alcohol wine, knowing that the acidity and the pH are balanced, and then you really start watching the weather and you start tasting. We're farming for flavors ultimately.
More than 70 tons of grapes are hand harvested from this high-density vineyard each year, including 2 clones of Chardonnay, Merlot, Cabernet Franc, Cabernet Sauvignon, and Petit Verdot. For John Wehner, the winemaking process is minimal, and when it comes to oak aging, he spares no expense and relies primarily on French oak.
What I like about the French oak is it's very subtle, and so a lot of the flavors that we're getting from the vineyard are very subtle, very elegant flavors that I don't want to over oak.
While they are known for their award-winning steel Chardonnay, Chatham is also seeing great success with Bordelais varietals, most notably Cabernet Franc.
Cabernet Franc is considered the Pinot of Bordeaux because it has lighter tannins and it has a tremendous amount of complexity. And I've tasted wonderful Cab Francs all over Virginia that have, that classic raspberry and pepper, and it also has an herbal quality of sage because of the pyrazines, of course, in the grapes.
So whether your preference is red, white, or even rosé, Chatham offers something for every palate.
One of the strengths Virginia has is diversity. We've demonstrated that we can produce wonderful wines on Virginia's Eastern Shore. We can produce wonderful wines in Charlottesville. And together it gives us great depth as we market our wines worldwide.
As the winners toast to another successful harvest, they invite you to take a detour off Highway 13 and join them for a taste of Virginia's Eastern Shore.
It's a labor of love. I say to John sometimes there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in the glass, but more than anything, there's a lot of love in each glass of wine we pour.
And as they say, sometimes the very best things in life are along the road less traveled. Cheers.